Item 3 is calling the meeting to order. McCracken County Fiscal Court, August 12 meeting, we have a special
guest
fiscal court clerk tonight. Yeah. Ms. Potts, would you call roll for us, please?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Parker.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Bartleman.
Here.
And Judge Clymer.
Here. And then I understand we have someone here that's going to lead us in the invocation.
Another special guest. Yes, Russell. Mr. Hobbs. You come up to the podium here.
It'll be a few years.
Yes?
Good.
Yeah, go back a little ways.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being with us.
Okay, it's my pleasure. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be here. Thank you for the fiscal court and for this meeting. Pray that your blessings will be upon it and each and every one that's a leader and that's leading in this area. Just give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and give us your blessings. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, join us in standing in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And then we have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the
Can I ask a question about, I'll make that motion.
All right, and second?
Second.
I just have a question about that.
Right.
In the renewal of the contract with the state for the lease of the rental of space, is that an increase this year than what we got last year? Or is it the same as what we had previously?
Let's see, that's the Commonwealth, is that the
Yeah.
Commonwealth attorneys?
Yeah. Is that just the Commonwealth attorney?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about a while ago. Is that M? Yes. Yeah, we're going to, what we want to do is table it if you're good with it, and we're going to enter into some negotiations. That 24,782, what was that, 1999? 1997.
So do you want a motion to remove that from the consent agenda?
Yes.
I make a motion we remove item M from the consent agenda.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
And so that carries. We'll remove that. We'll put it back on after we've got some negotiations and we'll increase that hopefully pretty substantially. All right. And then as far as the remaining consent agenda, is there a motion to approve those?
So made.
That motion was already made.
Yeah.
We already made the motion to approve. We just need to vote on it.
Is there a second on it?
It was.
All right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, that carries. Let's see, we've got then budget transfers. Madam Clerk, or Madam Treasurer.
It is ordered that the necessary cash transfers in the amount of $676,296.12 be made in order to pay county bills and payroll approved July 22nd, 2019.
So made.
Motion. Second. Any discussion?
That date's wrong.
Oh.
That date should be today's date.
Okay. So it's, we need to.
Okay, I move we approve, we amend that to have August 12th, 2019 in place of July 22nd, 2019. I'll make that motion to amend that.
All right, second on that.
Second.
Amended. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, and then approving that order, motion to approve it. We already do that.
Do that.
Second on that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries. And accounts payable.
It is ordered to approve the vouchers claims register from July 22nd, 2019 to August 12th, 2019 to show county bills in the amount of $674,688.94 were paid.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. The budget transfers is $2,000 more than the accounts payable.
Well, the budget transfers incorporate payroll in there, so those don't necessarily correlate with what we're paying this evening.
But normally accounts payable is it usually higher than budget transfers?
Usually, but because we've received some money in for the road department, I did not have to transfer any money to
Okay.
road to pay their bills.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries. Then we got some discussion items. One was Pinnacle Sports. I don't know if do we have anybody here from Pinnacle Sports, or we just?
But they were back here, down here in May. That's Norm Gill.
Yeah. Okay.
He didn't come back. But
All right. Were you wanting to lead that?
yeah, I guess Steve and I have been talking about the possibility of that information would be very helpful to a new sports tourism commission. What Norm was going to offer us and what he offered Hopkinsville community when he did their insight was basically trying to figure out the regional market area of what they could do in sports to get the most bang for the buck as far as the tourism aspect of it. I was impressed with Mr. Gill, and I think we are now at a stage where that information would be helpful to us sooner than later, so that we have more direction and we can provide that information to the sports tourism. So that's why I thought it would be good for us to discuss that contract. I think we originally tabled it because we just weren't as sure as what we were going to do.
How much was that for?
Steve, remind me, but I think that was a $15,000. $15,000.
We don't have it on for. Do we have it? We don't have an order on it. It was just for discussion.
It was just discussion, so.
Let me ask you a question. Could we, if we were to approve that before the creation of the sports commission and we pay for it ourselves, could we get reimbursement from the sports commission once it's approved in October, or?
If the newly formed board adds and agreed to do so.
Okay.
They're probably not going to have cash flow until
November,
probably,
December.
yeah, December is probably when they're going to start getting money. So they're not going to have any money. I feel pretty confident that the PACRO board would believe that this is economic development since it's tied to the Sports Tourism Commission. But well, it indicated that in the past they would.
So we'd have two possible
sources.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good idea, but I don't know if we're so early that we don't know the path we're taking 100% yet. So how do we ask them to do a study? What do we ask them to do a study on if we're not sure what you know what I'm saying? We're not sure what we're doing.
Well, I think that's part of the reason for the study is they're going to give us some direction for what, so in other words, what market is out there that we could attract to Paducah, not necessarily the question. This is not the question of, well, what does Billy and Bobby, local residents want, for their playtime. It's more of what will actually end up result in people from St. Louis and Nashville and Louisville driving to Paducah for tournaments, and that was the attraction to me. Plus, one of the things that is being tossed around is maybe some additions to the Expo Center as to how it can be used for sports, with the addition of courts or volleyball courts, and I think Norm Gill would give us some ideas on how to do that, because that's what he does for a living. And I think
I guess it might give us some direction what maybe to do first, whatever the hottest thing is, or what they're telling us, we can, you know, if it's bringing volleyball and basketball to the expo center, or if it's bringing baseball, softball, soccer to outdoors, you know. I'm good with it, especially if we can get somebody else to help us pay for it.
But before our next meeting and before we put it on for order, I'll run it past and do kind of a general discussion with Pacro to see if I think that they would feel that would, I mean, we've got about a $250,000 credit or more with their company, but it has to be, or with that agency, I should say. But it has to be for economic development. I think this fits the criteria, but I'd make sure of it before I put it on for us.
Probably give our hotel owners some excitement too, trying to get rooms actually look like.
Yeah. Any other discussion about it?
Well,
If you want, I mean, you talk with him and we can talk and put it on for an ordinance.
all right, I'll
Next
proceed
time.
that way if that sounds.
Sounds good.
Okay. And then we had a discussion about the possible insurance premium tax to initiate that. And what we've been sort of Steve Doolittle and I have been talking some and with the treasurer and other folks about we call it a tight spot we're in on finances, and we've got to find some way to generate some revenue. We can't continue responsibly to continue to take from our savings to pay recurring bills and things that come up that have to be paid. And so this is one of the potential sources, is to put a tax on insurance premiums, and it can be well, for instance, the city taxes 6%, I think, across the board on all insurance premiums. We could, you know, the discussion can include not doing the tax at all, or it can, you know, could result possibly in doing a certain percentage tax and do it on just some premium, some forms, health insurance, car insurance, real property insurance, or limiting it to just a few, whatever. I mean, it's wide open. That's why we're just going to need to discuss it, see what the feel of the board is, and you know, get everybody's input on it. We don't know if the city is going to remain at 6% or if it might increase in the future. But let's see, we've never had, I don't believe, McCracken County's never had an insurance premium tax. But I think, Steve, you've found a number of locations that. Can you give us a little bit on what you found in your research about similar government bodies that do have it and how that fares?
Pam and I called the Office of the Insurance Commissioner to see what we could learn, and my first question was, what if the county so elected to approve a tax, how much do you think it would yield? And he said, we just don't know. There's just too many variables. Not all counties are exactly the same, but what we will do is share some data with you. And so I went through the data sets and also looking at some other counties, and looked at 3 counties that were just a little bit smaller than us, a notch smaller. That's Henderson County, Hopkins County, and Franklin County. And that's Henderson and Frankfort. And 3 counties that are a little bit bigger than us: Bullitt County, Campbell County, and Davis County. And 2 counties that are very similar to us in size, Pulaski County and Oldham County, which were like McCracken County, both around $65,000. And when I looked at,
You mean 65,000 people?
65,000 people. And when I looked at, when you go through the data, counties take wildly different approaches in their taxing policies. In this data set, Pulaski County taxes 5.5%, and that 5.5% gains them about $3.3 million in their budget. There's 3 counties, Hopkins County, which is Madisonville, Oldham County, which is LaGrange, and Campbell County, which is Covington, Northern Kentucky area. They all tax it at 10%, and there's sort of a wide variation of what they get from that 10%, and then Henderson does 9.75. Bullitt County does 5%, and why it's kind of hard to predict what you get from, say, 1% has to do with land use, how much business activity do you have. Some of these counties are just largely residential in nature. They don't have much business activity outside of the central city that's in their county. Some are really big and spread out. Some are, like McCracken, a little bit more compact. So just lots of variables that go into it. But the average of all those counties is 8.1%, and their average yield for that 8% is $3.5 million would be the impact on their budget. Now, when I looked at those county budgets and how much of this tax do they rely on, the average was right at 10%. So they get about 10% of their revenue from this form of tax. I'd ask you to go back to your last meeting when the CAECO government affairs person was here, and she noted how generally the restrictive nature of taxes we're allowed to have are. Since our population is greater than 30,000, our occupational taxes are taxed at 1%. So both payroll taxes and taxes we charge on net profits are capped at 1%. Can't make it any bigger. Our prop tax is limited to 4% growth per year. We can't have sales tax. There's just lots of things that county governments cannot do. So this is the one tax that doesn't have a minimum, doesn't have a maximum. What it does is give us some flexibility to figure out what is the number you're trying to get through to solve a problem, and you can adjust the percentage up or down to make that work. What I can't tell you is how much would 1% tax get. If forced to make a wild guess just based on the averages of these different counties, it looks like 1% tax would yield $360,000. That's my best guess when you dangerously take averages of averages.
Do we know what the city yields percentage-wise on theirs, or what? I mean, you said theirs was 6%. What do they yield at 6%?
I don't know, and I don't know if that's a good comparison for
Mr.
us.
Perkins, I think, did analysis on that, and I think it's about $600,000
Right.
per 1% in the city.
You think theirs is higher because it's so compact?
I think it's
and they got a lot of
denser,
industrial?
I think it's the benefit of lots of business activity. There's more lines to tax because of the business activity. Homeowners.
Judge mentioned the ability to target particular insurance
Yes.
products as opposed to others. I'm not familiar with that. Does anybody actually differentiate between the insurance products?
Yes, they do. So you may tax any or all of fire and allied perils, casualty liability, vehicle insurance, inland marine, health, and life. As I went through the data from from the Office of the Commissioner. Some communities, not ordinarily counties, but some cities will exempt health insurance, for example.
Does Paducah?
No, Paducah does all lines. But if you're working toward a number and you say, I want to take out vehicle and health and this, but you're trying to work to a number, all you do is force the rate up higher on other lines. There's an odd formula for this too that you should know. You can't pass an ordinance and start collecting tax. You have to have an ordinance in place and notify the cabinet 100 days out from July 1. You get one shot a year at it. And then the taxes are collected on a quarterly basis, and then a month after the quarter ends, you start to see revenue. So even if you did this in the next 3 months, you wouldn't see revenue until October of next year. So
And
more than a year out.
Doing it. So then our deadline, our internal deadline for, all right, we've got to make this decision by when in order to generate that income.
We would have to adopt, our last crack at an adoption would be March 9th.
That, with it being like that gives us some time to see where our property valuations come in and what we're gonna get from that to maybe offset what we charge on something like this if we decide to do it, correct? When does his numbers come in?
We will set our tax rates typically in September, early October, and it's really at that point when you set your rates that we will be able to apply it towards the assessed values and make a pretty good estimate of what's going to come in. But that's of course pending collection, but we have pretty, it's pretty consistent from year to year.
I think our biggest challenge, nobody likes to talk about tax increases, and but our biggest challenge is paying our retirement into the pension fund.
Easily.
And that's something we have absolutely no control over unless we lay off employees. So if we were to lay off 10 deputy sheriffs, we could save money for what we put in the retirement, but we don't set the rates of what we pay into the retirement system. That's set by a board that's in Frankfurt, and that's something we have no control over. And if I read the figures right from what I got, we spent about $3 million this year in the pension fund. In 5 years, that will increase to an estimated $5.8 million. And if we don't have some revenue to pay that, we're going to have to lay off employees. I think we're already pretty lean in how we do things. The jail could use more employees. The sheriff's office could use more employees to improve their patrolling, and we just don't have the money to really hire more employees. But if we don't find a way to fund the retirement system and our retirement obligation, we're going to have to lay off employees, and we don't really have that many extra to lay off. I think in the road department, for example, we're down, I don't know, do you know the numbers of where we were?
I think we're down 4 or 5 employees over when I left in 2008.
So we have, that's a whole crew in the road department.
Yep.
The sheriff's office, we added a few deputies, but their duties increase all the time too with state mandates. We've got an interstate going through this community that takes a lot of time and a lot going on, or the population of it. And unfortunately, we're going to have to do something, and because if we had control over the pension system, we might find a way to get through this, but we have absolutely no control over how much we have to pay in the pension system.
I think the editorial on last Thursday's paper, you get that, where it said that it had been pushed on to us from the state level.
Well, in the county retirement system, I think we've always paid everything we've been told to pay, but I think there's been questionable management of the retirement fund. and the retirement system. Because again, the county retirement system is separate from the state retirement system. Ours is funded, the county retirement is what, 30 or 40% funded?
I think a little bit better than that.
And the
but
state retirement system is under 20%.
teachers
15.
are at 5, yeah.
It's way down, so it's just mismanagement of the retirement system over the years. And because we always paid what they told us to pay to keep it at or close to 100%, but then those figures weren't correct in the past. So instead of paying $5 10 years ago, we're going to have to pay $10,000 now to make up for what wasn't put in it then. So unfortunately, we're going to have to do something, and we have to do it the least painful way possible.
The going back to, I don't think you can cut your way out of the problem. I'm going to make up the shortfall by cutting employees. That will work for that 1 year, right? If I need to balance budget by cutting 7 or 8 positions, that gets you 1 year. And then next year, because of the nature of, we're in this announced cycle from the state where the rate for both hazardous and non-hazardous will increase 12% every single year, that you would find yourself in that same condition the following year when the pension goes up hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so at some point I don't think you have any excess employees now, frankly. You're short of where you probably need to be. So I don't think you could even cut your way out of this problem, because it would just fix it for 1 year, and then you would be right back to where you started. And then so it's just not sustainable. And I think I understood from that meeting you had last week that there's no immediate relief from Frankfurt on this issue. It's not going to happen for us.
And historically, I think you always said for every dollar you pay in payroll, the benefits and taxes were about, that the agency had to pay were about 30%. So
we used to say
for every
that.
dollar, it used to be $1.30. And now, for example, the hazardous duty pay, the retirement is 40% of payroll. For every dollar we spend in payroll, just for the retirement system is 40%. So that's $1.40. Then by the time you add medical expense and Social Security and workers' comp insurance, it goes way up. So,
Right now,
yeah. And then it's estimated to go up to what, 70% in 5 years. That'd be 70% of your payroll. So it's just going to be a killer.
right now today, for a non-hazardous employee, that we would start out at the.
And I don't think we can depend on the state doing anything else, because they're going to say, well, that's the county system. That's your responsibility. So
Today, you will notice we're hiring people at $12 an hour. The actual cost to us is $47,000 for a $12 an hour employee. When we add in the cost of our health insurance program and the state retirement. And what is painful about that is those new employees will see little or no benefit from that. They're what we call Tier 3. They're not in the defined benefit program. They're in the defined contribution, and the large increase no longer benefits the employees we are hiring today. They're largely benefiting the Tier 1 employees and the retired Tier 1 employees like myself, and so people used to come to work for the county not for the money but for the health insurance and for the retirement. That is becoming a tough proposition for us, particularly in the jail. That is just not an attractant for us anymore. So at some point, we have to make our best benefit health insurance, and we have to offer better pay in those departments to attract professionals that will stay with us for a longer term, and cut the dire turnover rate that is occurring in critical key positions in that department.
But if we pay them more, won't we have to, it'll raise
Yes,
what
sir.
we're contributing
Yes.
to, so we're kind
Yes.
of in a catch-22. The more you pay them, the more you got to contribute.
Yep.
Another thing that's happening, I went to a conference a few weeks ago, and in some states, local government is outsourcing a lot of the services, so they don't have to meet all those mandates. Even I talked to one fellow from, I think it was from the East Coast somewhere, and he said they outsourced their jail to a private jail operator, and it reduced their costs almost in half because they didn't have to pay all those benefits mandated by the state. So I'm not suggesting that we'll even think about that, but there's others in Kentucky thinking about that. So again, it's a tough situation.
I'm interested in trying to parse out what we can on the health insurance line. What county? You said there were either a city or a county that didn't.
I didn't bring that data. I was just scrolling through the pages of it, and I would see where occasionally, and it was mostly cities, would not tax the health insurance line.
But it just kind of seems like, well, that's going to be your employed person who's already paying a 1% tax. So I can see the logic of trying to back that out.
But if you're trying to, the point I was trying to make, if you're backing into a number and you say I need to cover up 10% of my budget, and that's $3 million, then you end up, the rate becomes higher on vehicle and inland marine and liability and property insurance.
You're saying the more you back out, the higher the rate.
Right. For the other lines.
Just, I guess I'm trying to find that broad way of making sure that we're not overburdening those who are working and those who own real estate, and finding a way to broaden that base to include the guy that has a car but doesn't have a job.
Well,
because right now he or she doesn't pay any county tax.
Well, they would just pay on the car insurance.
On the car, right? I guess they pay their property tax on a vehicle.
They pay property tax on their vehicle, yes. And they would, if you had an insurance premium tax on vehicles, then they would also pay that. And that's not a tax that's collected by McCracken County. It's actually collected by the insurance company. So it's collected at the time the premium is paid and then remitted to the county later.
They get to tack on a 0.09
up to 2%.
How much?
Up to 2%. The insurance commissioner advised us that all insurance companies, when a city or county adds that tax, they add the maximum collection fee they can. And then the county doesn't pay that. The actual holder of the insurance policy pays it.
So if we set a rate at 5%, it's going to be billed at 7%.
There's a formula in the statute that says they are allowed to collect a reasonable collection fee for not more than 15% of the fee or tax collected, or 2% of the premium subject to the tax, whichever is less. So it's either 15% of the total or 2%, whichever is less. And so for the much bigger premiums, it ends up being the 2% is less.
So, going back to, all right, if we'd made everybody happy at budget time, how much more money would we have needed to make it if everybody got what they wanted?
I think
like the sheriff's office, jailer, and the nonprofits.
Going back to my first memo, I believe that number was. Of our departments, that number was 2.2 million that we just cut, just left it on the floor, couldn't do it. And then of the outside agencies, it was the difference between 520 and 824. So whatever that math is.
About 2.3, 2.4.
Yeah. Yep.
And then how much of a reserve? We had a $7 million reserve. That's what it looked like we had when you're.
In 2012, we had all the bills paid and $7 million in the bank. It's dwindled down to 2.5 million.
Yeah, so that's the other side of the coin is, of course, we were talking about we're needing to raise revenue to pay bills, and we owe a tremendous amount of money for the jail locks. We had that the audit that we convinced the revenue folks to let us make payments on that, of all things, because it was so astounding a number that we couldn't afford that. So we're making monthly payments on our audit for the past 2 years. You know, y'all saw that Steve did a real good job putting together this graph on. We got that there showing. It's like he's saying back. And we talked back and forth about what is a prudent, what's a fiscally responsible amount to have in cash reserves or savings account for the county. You know, just looking at year ends in 2012, the year ended 7.8 million in cash reserve almost. 2013, 7.5. 2014 went down to 6.5 million. Then 2015, 4.6. 2016, 4.4. 2017, 4.1. Took a leap downward in 2018. 2. It's hard to read that yellow. 2.8.
2.8.
And then 2019 was 2.5, and so we're, what is that? We're somewhere around a third of what we were in cash reserves in 2012.
Scarier month is October when you get down under $1 million.
Yeah, and of course that's fluctuating. Yeah, that's just end of the year things. Yeah, then you see there. Yeah, in 2019 in October, we were at $760,000 in reserves. It's just, you know, dangerously low, and so there's the need, along with the pension crisis that we've got to be responsible for, the recurring debt that we have to take care of, and so I hope the public sees that it's not a matter of us just wanting to try to get more money just for the sake of having more money. It's we need a cushion, just like the people do in their homes, in case something happens. And stuff, I can tell you, being here 7 months, stuff happens around here just every day. There's a bumper sticker about that, about stuff happening.
The number I think minimally we need to have at all times is $4 million, and we need that both for the seasonal problems that happen in the fall, for those unexpected large expenses that always come up around here, and also for your bond rating. That's one of the single most important numbers when you go to the bond markets as to what your interest rate is going to be, is how much cash available do you have. So it's getting to be a really critical situation.
Why was it such a large drop from 17 to 18 in
There was, I would have to go back and look.
Almost $1.5
Paid
million, so.
paid cash for something large. I can't remember what it was, but
Not in that time period. It was the emergency management.
Every year it
That was
drops.
like 2015.
Yeah, every year it drops 400,000.
that occurred before then. I think we had identified what the drop was. I don't remember now. One of the years, the significant drop had to be there was a building we built for cash. I don't remember what that drop was.
I didn't hear the number you said would be a good.
4 million.
4 million.
Would be a minimum.
Yeah, 4 million minimum.
We know our occupational income is going to go down from the agreements. We've got certain agreements with the city that are going to expire on the sharing of income from the 24 Park and from the Information Age Park.
We have unexplained from that, and we also have some unexplained volatility in our numbers. Don't exactly understand why our collections are flat.
I kind of feel like the best or most we can do tonight is just sort of bring it to your attention and the public's attention and identify the need and let them know that we're going to be working on trying to do a fair and equitable means of gathering some revenue. It's just like in the home budgets. I mean, you either cut out doing things in our cut out employing people or maybe even laying off people or not paving roads, not providing services that we do, or we have to generate some level of revenue to take care of these things. I mean, it's pretty simple, but how we're going to do it. And so it is complicated when you're talking about an insurance tax because of these various tax categories. And we've got, and I think we need to think closely about if any of them, I have some concern about on health insurance. If employers provide it and people purchase it on their own, it's a responsible thing that people do. Of course, that goes with the other insurances as well. But if there's any one that stands out to me that we might want to look hard at is, do we want to tax people on their health insurance policy? And at what level if we do want to do that.
Could we do that at different levels? Or the
different categories? It would,
the cabinet had a prohibition against that. When we went through the data, when you see a city or county, it's the same percentage of the lines that they tax.
seems like that would be very confusing to me.
yeah, it'd be difficult, I think. Of course, we got the starting point. If we sort of sometimes compare ourselves with the city, and we work with the city on things, and so it would seem to carry some justification to say, well, the city taxes at this level for these categories. That's at least a starting point to see if we want to do that, and again. Whether they're going to stay at 6 or go higher, we don't know. But maybe we can talk. Maybe we put a workshop together just to address that and see if there's any other things along the revenue corridor that we might want to look at and bounce around. Any other discussion on it? Nope. Good. All right. We got put partaking Paducah back on the agenda, and we've got a couple of folks here. If they want to take a couple minutes, we've heard from you. If you want to come up, Jonas, and we've got a packet in there from I think we got that last time. I just wanted to put them back on. I like their program. I think it's strong. We're talking about being in a tight spot on spending money, but I think we do have some, it's certainly economic development type of endeavor, and perhaps it could be paid out of one of our ED funds, but I think there's a possibility that with more promotions, maybe it would bring in some revenue for us. We spend something for it, but it brings in revenue as well. But we got to say, Jonas.
Sure. Just really here just to answer any questions you all have. Just a brief refresher on what it is as we've stepped in and done a lot of work in the ED world. We talk about bringing jobs, which also kind of helps spread the cost and brings that additional revenue in. But bringing those jobs is only half of the equation of actually generating a job, because you have to bring those positions and then you have to fill those positions. And so when you currently have employers that are struggling with filling jobs in our community, there's tools that we're trying to provide for those employers to create and get those people in that population here and those people to move to our community. All the employers that we spoke with, the two things they said: you always have to sell the prospect on is that you have to sell them on the position and the company itself, but then also the community. And so Partake in Paducah is there as a resource to really promote all the positive, good things about our community and be a tool to just generate and market to people, to hopefully young professionals, others in different industries, and then be a tool for future employers as they come in. It's a good selling point because workforce is always a constraint for a company, so it's a tool that we can actually use to help recruit industry because we can show that we have a mechanism in place and process to help them fill the positions they bring here. So I really just here, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Is this part of the marketing strategy of the economic development, GPC?
No, this is a separate entity, so it's not in, we do partner with them. We partner with multiple organizations through the community, but it's not necessarily part of their marketing strategy. They're going after industry and companies, and this is more going after the workforce recruitment.
So this is for a 12-month deal, I guess where I'm going with this, if we get in the middle of and say we're going to do agree with the city, we're building ball fields and all this, I mean, are you going to be able to incorporate all that with what we're doing? Because that'll drive economic development. I mean, it'll bring people in, but it also is a way. Economic development needs a good way of life, and to me, that's what people are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so what we're currently doing is we're pushing through a digital platform that reaches nearly 300,000 people a month. So there's a lot of eyeballs that are seeing this. Anything positive in the community, like the things that you all are trying to bring, we'd absolutely do everything we can to cover that and push that out to the public, both internally for the community so that they can kind of have their community pride, but more importantly to those people outside the community to drive them in, because kind of going back to the previous conversation, revenue, we have to generate it for our community. We have to bring those jobs, and that's the best way to really do that, is to bring those companies in and bring those people and encourage home builders to build more homes and really grow the population here. That way it kind of helps spread the burden.
And you got a commitment from the city for what?
They have verbally committed that it's going to the commission vote tomorrow as well. So they're going to be having the same thing tomorrow.
For $12,000?
Theirs was $1,000 a month. Yes, sir. Yeah, and we've done this independently, trying to do with private sector, and we've done okay being able to do that. But it starts to get a little commercialized, and that's not really the goal of this platform, is to just be advertisements for businesses and things like that. It really, have done things like highlighting Noble Park or pushing out different neighborhoods. We've been releasing 8 features over the community, video features that talk about the benefits of the different areas of Paducah. We've done a full film about why I live in Paducah, and really trying to generate that content that just markets our city as a whole.
Do you have any statistics on results so far?
As far as eyeballs or people that are reached?
Not eyeballs. How many people have moved to Paducah because of that site?
No, sir. No, we don't have any. I mean, it's pretty green on that. What we're currently doing, though, is running advertisements. We've partnered with 25 real estate agents that are our city guides, and we're pushing and putting ads in Louisville and Nashville and St. Louis to kind of incentivize and drive people. But that was just all launched earlier on in this year. And that's all been through, like I said, private partnerships at this point. It's just, so it's really not enough history on it to share anything on that, but we will, I'm sure.
I guess one concern I think this would have to be an important part of the strategy of GPEC. I mean, not that that's their only strategy, but they would also have to, I would think I'd want to hear their endorsement of it, because they're the ones that need to, as you say, get an industry interested, but if the jobs and people aren't here, the industry isn't coming. So I think this would have to be an important part and endorsed by the GPEC.
I'm sure they would, and I'm sure they have. I mean, as far as verbally, Anderson was here last time, and We've had many discussions about this, so they're on board. They're staying in the silo or the focus of industry recruitment right now, and they're trying to kind of allow these other partner organizations like us or another organization to kind of fill some of the other gaps of economic development. But they have absolutely been great supporters and great friends in it all, and as well as Mary Ann Metlock with Kentucky Workforce Development. She's come and met, and we're actually looking at adding a section to create all the job listings on that site as well, so that employers can list those jobs and those opportunities in our community. She has endorsed it as well. So.
Well, what we could do is we could put it on for an ordinance and see whether it goes through next meeting or very soon at that level. We can talk about it and decide if we want, and it might be, maybe we'd hear something from GPED about,
Sure.
wink, wink, about whether they like you or not.
Sure.
But I think it's, and of course, the fact that you're over in the Coke plant, and we're putting a substantial amount of energy and money into another endeavor there, and it's a relatively small amount of money that I think could be helpful, but we'll put it on and maybe just take a vote next time.
What are the other sources of funding for it? The city has 12. If we were to do 12, that'd be 24, and I think the budget's what, 33
For the
for a year.
For the whole thing. Now we're actually on a $10,000 a month is what our budgeted annual income, or what we're looking at trying to generate. We do everything from video production, the website. We're running ads on those platforms, Facebook, Instagram, any type of digital presence, as well as partnerships with billboards and things throughout the community. So it's a small portion of what we do, but it would help a lot with some of the operating expenses and things that we have, because we're paying artists and creatives throughout the community, as far as photographers and writers and anybody who's capturing different things for it, as well as we have one full-time employee, Brad James, who's our director. Kind of helps coordinate.
$120,000 a year budget. Right?
Correct. Yes, sir. That's where, and we've kind of hit, like I said, we've done great with partnering with the private sector, but it's still one of those things that it is a lot to manage, and it's something that right now we're really doing it on our own and putting our own into it. So it's been a financial strain as well as just a time strain, and we want to continue doing it, but if we can't get into some support and partnership, we're going to have to scale back pretty significantly on the things that we're trying to do.
Yeah, if there's a way that we can somehow incorporate part of our, I guess, need to put information out to the public, then I think it really justifies it, because what we've learned is it cost us $2 to hire somebody at $1. So we could sign this contract, and you can help us provide that service to the public without an employee.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yep. We would definitely, all the things that you've discussed as far as some of the positive things, that's what the whole platform is about. There's nothing negative, and it's a platform that really is just there to be a bullhorn for all the positive and great things about our community. So it's anything like that would fall absolutely in line with the content we want to push.
I think it's a good concept. I think it would work well, but I really think it has to be coordinated with workforce development, Sprocket, GPC, and other like organizations, PACRO. I think it all has to be, if they all operate independently, it doesn't have as much effect as if somehow they're all working together to make sure that the goals are accomplished. I'm sure you're trying to do that, but
yeah, we are working with all of those agencies. So we definitely will. Other than PACRO, we're not working in that regards. But if it would help, Bill, I can also have a letter of recommendation from Mary Ann Metlock or Glenn Anderson or the partner organizations, the CVB. We have standing meetings with CVB, and also been meeting on a regular basis with Mary Ann Metlock. And so those three organizations, between them and GPEDC, definitely could provide you any kind of letter of recommendation.
I think there's a lot of groups trying to do all that, and this could be the kind of the umbrella that puts it all together, that rather than everybody working independently. And that'd be my only concern, that everybody's working together, and
Sure.
And rather than everybody going in their own direction and, the train tracks never meet. So.
Yeah, and there is definitely a lot of communications with the organizations you mentioned, so we're working pretty close with them. Their focus is different than ours, but there's that constant communication to make sure what we're doing is supporting what they're doing and vice versa. So
you'll have $2,000 a month from the city and the county if we approve it. Where's the other 10 coming from?
well, the other 8. We're doing it through private sector partnerships. So we've had different businesses and sponsors come in and sponsor different content and features, like the story we did on Noble Park, or the features we've done on Southside and Reedland and West Paducah, and all the different features we're doing like that have come through private partnerships. So, and the business community has been great, but it gets a little bit over commercialized. When you have those private companies, and because rightfully so, a sponsor or someone who's supporting you financially wants their name or their presence in there, but it really kind of dilutes a little bit of the focus of it. So if you're doing a feature on the whole community and it's kind of bent towards the sponsor, then it's not really a transparent look of, okay, this is the positive. It can sometimes bend a little bit towards that. So we want to try to kind of utilize some of this public-private partnership to better communicate and really highlight those things that sometimes aren't really a place for a business to sponsor.
You're the NPR of social media.
The NPR, huh? I'll take it.
I put on there a proposed order. I don't know if Phil will wait and think about it to bring that order back up for next meeting or very soon, or unless somebody wanted to make the motion now. It sounds like you want a little more information, but anybody want to make the motion to fund it now, or we can do either way?
I'll make a motion, we go ahead and do it. I'm pretty sold on it. I mean, if you want to wait and get more information, put it on for next time. It doesn't matter to me. So.
Is there a second to the motion, or we want to wait?
What's your preference, Bill? You want?
I just want to make sure everybody's, if we can bring some of those groups in or get letters of endorsement from, just to make sure that, I have no doubt that they're all involved, but I just want them to put their commitment in writing for everybody to work together and coordinate.
Sure.
Again, I think it's a good concept.
I'm for it, but why don't we wait and put it on for the next on the agenda next time?
All right, no second on them. So, but I'll put it back on.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for your time. Any other questions?
A letter from all those different groups that they support the concept and that they'll work and coordinate everything.
Yeah.
I feel
okay
better about it.
All right, no problem.
It's a good concept. Appreciate the vision that you're doing all right.
Yeah, and it's not just in conceptual form. I mean, we're doing it. We've been doing it for over 18 months now, and it's been growing platform. And we do have. I mean, I have no problem. We'll get the letters of recommendation, but it's boots on the ground and in the trenches working on it currently. So we appreciate y'all's consideration.
Those letters could be more than just a letter of recommendation, but a letter of commitment to work together. That would be good. I mean, I know it'd probably be easy letters of recommendation, but just kind of letters that commit all those different groups to work together to make it a success.
Okay, no problem.
All right,
Any other?
thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
All right, and then under old business, we have several things. Madam Clerk.
It is ordered to reappoint Tom Schulte to the Carson Park Board with an effective date of August 12th, 2019, and an expiration date of July 31st, 2022, subject to further orders of the court.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I had an opportunity to talk to Tom since our last meeting. He and I seem to be in agreement that both of us hate the chain link fence and want a true horse farm fence, so I'm all for Tom. He's done a great job on the Carson Park Board. Same comments on Beatrice. And
You're good with anybody that's good with you?
I'm good with anybody that doesn't want a chain link fence around that park.
Okay.
We're glad you're happy.
Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is ordered to appoint Beatrice Phillips to the Carson Park Board with an effective date of August 12th, 2019, and an expiration date of July 31, 2022, subject to further orders of the court.
I'll make that motion as well.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is ordered that the judge executive is authorized to enter into a services agreement with Lone Oak Youth Baseball Softball Association and to pay the amount of $10,000 to Lone Oak Youth Baseball Softball Association, same being the county park appropriation for fiscal year 2019-20.
Motion?
I want to make this motion, I make a motion to approve it, but I think we need some discussion on
All right, second on it?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
it. Mr. Doolittle.
Well, so you asked us to table this, and so when it gets tabled, it gets stuck back on the agenda and keeps coming up until we do this. If you want to table it again, I think the discussion, the last fiscal court meeting wasn't anything against Lone Oak or any problem with that. It had to do with how you are ultimately going to decide to do one of two things. We're going to add more dollars into the outside agency funding, or make some reallocations within it to help out some of the ones that maybe didn't get everything they want or anything at all.
So
I think we table again. And are we going to have to make these agreements with each and every?
Is my recommendation that unless they're authorized by ordinance or you have connection and control to their board, that you just don't hand money off, you actually buy some service from them.
I'd like to get them ready and discuss this workshop or something and get them all done at one time. Does that
Well,
make
maybe we can
sense?
put that on we're gonna have a workshop on the other.
This shouldn't be that hard. I mean, we should be able to.
Nope,
we
shouldn't.
should be able to nail it pretty good and get them their money, so.
All right, was that, so, for put it for a
I
workshop?
want to table it so we can get a workshop. And,
Second.
okay, thank you.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right. D,
It is hereby ordered that pursuant to KRS Chapter 67, the first reading of ordinance number 2019-08 shall be conducted in summary format as follows. An ordinance amending McCracken County zoning and subdivision regulations set forth in McCracken County Ordinance number 2015-09 as amended by making revisions and amendments to the zoning regulations pertaining to permitted land uses in areas zoned as commercial, agricultural, and rural residential, and revisions and amendments to the subdivision regulations related to plat approval submission procedure and county road specifications. The action effectuated in the present ordinance is authorized and required by Kentucky Revised Statutes, Chapter 100, and operates to amend the McCracken County zoning ordinance regulations by designating the following as permitted uses in the following zoned areas: automotive services and crematory services in agricultural districts, crematory services in rural residential districts, and banking and financial services in commercial districts. Additionally, the permitted uses in commercial districts were amended to remove the future use of establishing two-family dwellings, thereby limiting future residences to multifamily dwellings with a maximum density of 2,000 square feet per unit. Further, the ordinance amends the McCracken County subdivision regulations as follows. Procedural changes are made to the plat approval submission process, and updates were made to the process for acquisition of information related to McCracken County road specifications. It is hereby certified by the McCracken County Fiscal Court that the present summary represents an accurate official statement of the main points of and contents of ordinance number 2019-08. Ordinance number 2019-08 shall be available for public inspection in its whole and complete form in the McCracken County Judge Executive's office during ordinary business hours.
a motion?
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries. Board orders?
It is ordered that the order of June 10th, 2019, authorizing the county to request $1,500 from PACRO funds to sponsor the NAACP Community Gospel Concert at the State NAACP Convention is hereby rescinded.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
So I think in some of our discussions, you've been able to obtain funding from the CVB on this, or at least direct them.
Yeah. Was it me or you? Or maybe it's all of us.
Well, I think
It's done.
I think I brought it up, but you sealed the deal.
Oh, I did, okay.
It's
All right. Yeah, so the CVB's gonna handle that, so we'll have to go to PACRO for a relatively small amount. Any other discussion on it? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is ordered that the 2 invoices received from Denton Law Firm for consultation with Deputy Judge Executive Steve Doolittle regarding Clarks River Kayak and Canoe Launch dated May 31st, 2019 and June 30th, 2019 in the amounts of $3,771.25 and $332.78, total of $4,104.03, be approved and paid. Said invoices are to be paid from account 01-5405-718.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion?
So this is this leading up toward a grant request or some?
There's what's Murphy's?
This is for the Jackson Purchase Foundation to develop 2 kayak launch sites on the Clarks River. One on property we own, another one on some state-owned property. So it was an application you prior approved to Land and Water Conservation Grant. It's federal money administered by the state. And we hired Cheryl Chino to quickly prepare an application as the time frame was due. The matching funds were coming from another grant that the Jackson Purchase Foundation had from the HDR Foundation. So
this is not Department of Local Government grant. This is.
They actually administer this grant, but it's land and water conservation money. It'd be approximately I think it's a $60,000 project. All told.
Oh.
I'm good.
I like the direction. Tim Harton and Kevin Williams canoed it this weekend, and according to Tim, Kevin couldn't keep his canoe upright because there wasn't a platform to launch.
Well, with experience.
Yeah.
But that's so. There is at about mile 12 on Clarks River from the Tennessee River. There's at Reedland Ball Field. There's a launch. It's pretty good shape, and then about mile 6 there's a launch spot. Well, there's a mud slope.
That's the private.
Yeah,
probably
under Sheehan Bridge
right.
Road.
Yeah.
And it's pretty steep, and the road getting in there is kind of rough, but our road department's going to get in there and help shape up the road. It's underneath the Sheehan Bridge.
That's where they launched.
Yeah, and so there's some parking down there, and we'll cut it out, make it a nicer launch area there. In fact, September 7, was it 9 o'clock in the morning? September 7, 9 o'clock, there's, what's Murphy's first name? Yeah, Kevin Murphy, with Jackson Purchase Foundation. He's putting a lot of strong effort into it, and they're going to have a float from a kayak canoe trip so that's 6 miles to the Tennessee River, or just about 6 miles. And there's a takeout there at right there before you get to the Tennessee River, underneath the Highway 62 bridge there.
What's on September 7th?
September 7, 9 a.m. In fact, they're going to have a bunch of canoes up there at the Sheehan Bridge roadside. I noticed, I didn't realize that our court meetings are on YouTube. Maybe y'all knew that, but I don't know why particularly, because there's like 18 views and one.
I don't think anybody watches them, but yeah, they're there.
I may have
The
watched it.
newspaper guy watches.
He
Make sure he
watched-
doesn't make mistakes.
He watched some.
Even my mother doesn't watch them.
And so it's pretty neat. I think it's a good resource, and I'd love to see it kind of get developed a little bit. But where I was headed was they're going to bring a bunch of canoes and kayaks there. People are encouraged to bring their own. By then, we'll have a decent place where they can get into the water. And I think they're going to try to do some shuttling so people can leave their cars there. And then get shuttled back up to where they launched, so.
I'll meet you there.
All right, we'll do that. I forgot where we were. Did we get that approved?
We did not vote on that. We need to vote on that.
Was there any other discussion? All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It carries.
It is ordered that a bid opening was held on July 29th, 2019 for the demolition of 1122 Rudder Street. 2 bids were received and taken under advisement.
So me.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
It is ordered that the bid for the demolition of 1122 Rudder Street in the amount of $4,200 is awarded to Lanny Jones Excavating of Brookport, Illinois, who was the lowest bidder.
So made.
Second.
How much was the other bid, you know?
Lanny's a well qualified and excellent contractor for this work.
Any other
I
discussion?
believe I might have that information. The other bid was $49.80.
Okay. Thank you.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
It is ordered to purchase 2 Verity scan machines for absentee voting in elections. The current e-scan machines will then be used for backups for the other 54 McCracken County precincts. The total cost will be $12,691.50, which is $1,343.50 lower than the regular state price, to be paid from County Clerk's budget, account number 015065341.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is ordered that the judge executive is authorized to enter into and execute an engineering services agreement with Markham Engineering, LLC, in the amount of $20,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
What's this for?
For the jail locks.
Okay.
When the jail was built in 1998, it had an innovative pneumatic system, burst surveyor, that were used to lock and unlock the doors. So they're pretty well obsolete and not favored. The county last year did a smaller demonstration project to electrify the locks. I think it was around $50,000. He's left around $50,000, and so. This is to get bids ready on the rest of the jail, and we think this is about a $300,000 project. We have the plan for that is we have $162,000 in the budget already, and we're going to try to find the rest within the jail budget if possible. If not possible, we'll do a partial project and break it up into 2 years.
Has the engineering now already been done on those locks? I
No.
thought the engineering.
Sure wasn't. Is
They did the
not.
project last year that.
Nope.
They did
I
the
mean,
kinds of locks
I
that
mean,
they replaced last year?
they virtually prepare a door-by-door schedule of the lock that goes in and where the power comes from and how it's connected back to the control room. Deputy Judge Moore had negotiated that at $25,000, and it came in at 20, so a little less than I thought.
Cool.
Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries. Ordinances?
Sir, we have an order that was removed from the
Oh.
consent here. It was item M, and it's now G on the public. It is ordered that the judge executive is authorized to execute the renewal of lease agreement with the Commonwealth of Kentucky at an annual lease amount of $24,782.60.
Yeah, so we're, do we,
Is that what we tabled?
that's
Did you
what
say
we're gonna
we're gonna
table, when you
negotiate
take
that?
off the consent agenda, I think, so I guess.
It has not been tabled yet. It was removed from the
We need
consent.
to
Table
vote
G.
to table
So
it.
we'll do a motion to approve it, second,
Yeah.
and then we'll do a motion to table. Is that how you want it?
Or you just make a motion to pass
Well, just to
over.
table it, wouldn't it? Well, we're not gonna vote on it, we're just gonna
Right.
table it.
Make a motion to pass over.
Yeah.
Second.
Second, on-
So we're all tabling it, that's what we're
Yeah.
voting.
yeah.
So Mr. Barton made the motion, I second to table, pass over.
Okay. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
Ordinances. It is hereby ordered that pursuant to KRS Chapter 67, the reading of ordinance number 2019-09 shall be conducted in summary format as follows. An ordinance repealing ordinance number 2000-16 and establishing an updated detailed pronouncement of the comprehensive procedures for the collection, disbursement, and enforcement of a transient room tax. The action effectuated in the present ordinance is authorized by Kentucky Revised Statutes, Chapter 91A. This ordinance repeals ordinance number 2000-16, which set forth the initial McCracken County transient room tax levy, collection, and enforcement procedures. The present ordinance sets forth an updated pronouncement of the transient room tax collection, disbursement, and enforcement provisions specifying in greater detail the rights and duties granted by the chapter to ensure a clear understanding of the same by those coming within its purview. Additionally, the present ordinance makes provision for compliance with its requirements by host proprietors for transient room accommodations operating through internet brokering agencies such as Airbnb, VRBO, and other similar providers. It is hereby certified by the McCracken County Fiscal Court that the present summary represents an accurate official statement of the main points of and contents of ordinance number 2019-09. Ordinance number 2019-09 shall be available for public inspection in its whole and complete form in the McCracken County Judge Executive's Office during ordinary business hours.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
How will we check to make sure these taxes are paid, that we're collecting them off of Airbnbs?
Well, I think
It's
that's.
just order
that's
saying
in the
they have to
process.
pay it, but I mean, who's gonna police it?
Well, of course, this is the ordinance, this particular one is the ordinance, what was the term we used here? Well,
This just says we're gonna do it, but I mean, I guess that's my question.
This is the revised
Right.
version that the county attorney put together late today, right?
And this,
well, I don't know that we've got a solid system of making sure that they get paid. I think that's being worked on.
so
I'll revise my question. I really like this. This is a positive thing, and it's headed in the right direction, but somewhere down the road, we'll have to work on getting a way to make sure it's taken care of.
That's been an issue for,
Yeah, it has, but it's time
since it
to
was first approved in 1970.
well,
bring it to a head.
I think Airbnb has actually
Forever.
proposed an agreement which this ordinance will allow us to sign, and it will relieve the local hosts from reporting their income provided they're in a contract with an internet provider. If they're not in a contract with an internet provider that is or one that is actually providing us money. If they're not providing us the money and reasonable reports, then that individual host has to make the report and pay the tax.
Somebody still has to police it down the road, though.
Yes.
Okay. I'm done. I'm just asking questions.
Any other discussion?
I have a question, Steve. You've answered this for me before, and I want to make sure I understand. If there is excess funds in the escrow account to pay off the bonds, can that excess funds be used to pay for capital projects at the convention center or at the Carson Center? That's the 2%.
So, yes, we're generating a little bit of excess funds right now. Not so much that I'm really comfortable, given the volatility in collections and as they go up and down, that it's a big concern now. So, for all, and the statute requires that it be used for debt. So pending some new, we have enough money for the 2 debt issues that we're servicing right now to pay those off, and we're using this money. It's not going anywhere. We're just using it as a little backstop if there should be a problem or an issue with collections. At some point, I should think in the next couple of years it will start to become more of an issue. But I also know this, every few years there's a capital project that comes up and requires the issuance of some small amount of debt.
And if I understand correctly, the city, we collect the money, but the city pays the bonds. Is that right? They're responsible.
Well, that's the current arrangement for the 2 outstanding bonds that we are not. Yes, there's a 3rd debt on the convention center that's actually a geo lease that the county has, where the city pays us half. We don't use transient room tax for that, but that one's running out, Pam, I want to say at the end of the next calendar year. So we're kind of getting down to the end of that one. But the other 2 debts for which we use it just happened to be that the city issued the debt. We gave the city a note for 50%, and we collect under the statute. Only the county could collect the 2%. In this new arrangement, the city cannot add 2%. So we'll continue to collect that and pay that off. And I think the longest of these 2 bonds goes until 2034. So.
And the city provides an invoice when these bonds are due. We get an invoice from the city specifying exactly how much is needed for the bond issue. Is that right?
They send me a copy of the actual note payment that the bank is asking for.
We don't send them the entire 2% balance.
We do not. We hold the 2%.
Excess funds, we hold the excess funds.
And the interest that accrues until such time as the city needs the money to make the payment.
If the city needs $10, they get $10. They don't get 15. If
Correct.
15 in the account.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries.
It is hereby ordered that pursuant to KRS Chapter 67, the reading of ordinance number 2019-10 shall be conducted in its summary format as follows. An ordinance effectuating the withdrawal of McCracken County from the Paducah-McCracken County Tourist and Convention Commission and the establishment of a separate and independent county tourist and convention commission to be known as the McCracken County Sports Tourism Commission. The action effectuated in the present ordinance is authorized by Kentucky Revised Statutes, Chapter 91A, and Kentucky Opinion of the Attorney General 15-007. The present ordinance enables McCracken County to withdraw from the Paducah-McCracken County Tourist and Convention Commission and to establish a separate and independent county tourist and convention commission to be known as the McCracken County Sports Tourism Commission. The McCracken County Sports Tourism Commission shall be authorized to conduct any activity permitted by statute. However, the primary focus of the commission shall be upon sports-related tourism. The operation and activities of the McCracken County Sports Tourism Commission shall be funded by revenues generated by the McCracken County Transient Room Tax. It is hereby certified by the McCracken County Fiscal Court that the present summary represents an accurate official statement of the main points of and contents of ordinance number 2019-10. Ordinance number 2019-10 shall be available for public inspection in its whole and complete form in the McCracken County Judge Executive's office during ordinary business hours.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question, Steve. Is this the ordinance that specifies that the city's tourist commission will get all of the assets of the existing one? Or was that in the agreement with the city?
I think that part would be in the interlocal agreement. It wouldn't be in the story.
Okay. Thank you. I thought it was, but I wasn't.
Bring that question up.
Any other discussion?
I feel like we've talked about this for 6 months.
I feel like we have too.
So,
Including 10 minutes before we walked in.
I'm ready to vote anytime you are.
All right. I want to say that, this Commissioner Jones's idea, this whole separate CVB, and I think, of course, again, recognizing that people don't watch this unless they people just don't watch this. And it gets a little bit of coverage in the media, but it's vital, and it's extremely important that this community recognizes that this is a cooperative endeavor with the city to generate revenue. Your idea, you came up with it under the statute, worked on it hard, and I don't tell them how many hours. You don't get to bill hours for this like you do in your law practice, so we're fortunate for that. But that it's a joint hand-in-hand endeavor to create revenue to fund sports and other things, and so I like to give credit where credit's due, and certainly you've worked hard on it and been the father of the thing, and so I appreciate it, and hopefully the community does as well. And we've got some things to work out that we're going to talk about, and, the making sausage, and we'll get down in the dirt and figure out how some of this is going to work and that sort of thing. But it's a strong move, and it's going to be very effective. It's going to move this county and city both forward in a strong way, I think. So,
Thank you.
no other discussion, and all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
It is hereby ordered that pursuant to KRS Chapter 67, the reading of ordinance number 2019-11 shall be conducted in summary format as follows. An ordinance approving the form, content, and legality of the interlocal cooperation agreement by and between the City of Paducah, McCracken County, the Paducah McCracken County Tourist and Convention Commission, the Paducah McCracken County Convention Center, and the McCracken County Sports Tourism Commission, and authorizing the McCracken County Judge Executive to execute the same. The action effectuated in the present ordinance is authorized by Kentucky Revised Statutes, Chapter 91A, and Section 65.210 to 65.314. The present ordinance formalizes the approval of the McCracken County Fiscal Court of an interlocal cooperation agreement entered into by and between McCracken County, the City of Paducah, the Paducah McCracken County Tourist and Convention Commission, the Paducah McCracken County Convention Center, and the McCracken County Sports Tourism Commission, hereinafter the agreement, establishing and memorializing the respective rights and duties of said parties in connection with the tourism, convention, and recreation activities to be subsequently conducted within the geographic jurisdictional boundaries of McCracken County. Further, the present ordinance formalizes the McCracken County Fiscal Court's authorization and the McCracken County Judge Executive to execute the agreement on behalf of the county. It is hereby certified by the McCracken County Fiscal Court that the present summary represents an accurate official statement of the main points of and contents of ordinance number 2019-11. Excuse me. Ordinance number 2019-11 shall be available for public inspection in its whole and complete form in the McCracken County Judge Executive's office during ordinary business hours.
Motion?
I'll move.
Second.
All right, and discussion?
Well, I think we're close on this one, but as you know, there were kind of some changes proposed today that, while I'm close, I'd like a little more time to do some more diligence, and specifically the issue, and I notice Michelle is here, and that is to be able to do some diligence and to have some discussion as to the 1% that goes to the operations of the convention center, because this essentially will double their income, and this will be kind of our this could be our only chance to have some influence as to how that money might get spent, and I don't want to pass up the opportunity to try and use that influence. So I'd like to move to table this until we can have more discussions about that issue. Everything else is just great.
Can we discuss a couple issues on this?
Sure.
I personally liked draft number 6 of the interlocal agreement that we had. This is draft number
This is draft 7, and yeah, the judge and I have been involved in the meetings to make all of those.
This current draft is not consistent with the resolution we just approved, creating the new commission. In that one, it says that the fiscal court shall designate the official convention center of the county. This agreement says that the official designation is the Paducah McCracken County Convention Center.
That's right.
And in the other one, other agreement, it said that 16.67% of the revenue to be transferred to a convention center operating in McCracken County and designated by the McCracken Fiscal Court as the county convention center. That's on page 3 of draft 6, and on page 3 of draft 7 it says the 16.67% shall be transferred to the corporation, meaning the Paducah McCracken County, and applied to the corporation for the purpose set forth herein. I would never suggest that we would not support the existing convention center, but I think we need to have some flexibility to give the fiscal courts, the future fiscal courts, the authority to designate the official convention center. And I'd like us to go back to draft number 6 rather than 7. And on page 4 of both 6 and 7, it talks about the county's share. It designated as the convention center. Again, I would like that to be amended to say the convention center as designated by the fiscal court. That was a last minute change, I think, in most of the other drafts. That's what was changed today. And I think maybe we need to discuss it more, but I'd like it to. Again, I would never suggest that we would fund any other convention center, but it could be at some point, if the revenue is sufficient enough, we might be able to divide that up in some way.
Well, and I honestly I think there are some exciting possibilities, some exciting discussions ongoing about ways that we could use the existing expo in sports tourism. I think that's a great discussion. But I guess the problem is my personal problem with this agreement is that if we sign it, we couldn't get out of it for 12 months, and we'd have to have all the debt gone before we got out of it. So I'd just like to have more discussions about how we're going to use that money before we sign the agreement and before we're no longer relevant to the agreement, because we're the most relevant right now.
How much is 1%?
About 300,000
So-
a year.
1% is 300,000,
Right.
so it's 30,000 a month, or 28,000 a month.
I think we figured $28,000 a month.
I gotta agree with Commissioner Bartleman that we don't wanna just hand that out and say, here it is, and also what you're saying. I mean, there's not very many businesses in Paducah or McCracken County would like to have an extra 30,000 a month handed to them, so I think we need to be careful what we do with that.
I'm personally not concerned about how the money will be used, because the existing budget that was just approved by the Convention Center Board is almost $50,000 in deficit. And there are plenty of things that need to be done to that facility, plenty of equipment that needs to be bought. And I think it would be used wisely. I mean, I think as Commissioner Jones and I were having a conversation, he made the comment he didn't want them to use the extra money to hire 4 more cooks. But we need to maybe keep that money. That money needs to be set aside so that it can be used to replace the air conditioners and the roof, and just pay the operating and promotional expenses. So I'm not as concerned about how they'll spend the money, because 25% of it is already needed to balance the budget. But I'm concerned that, again, it gives the county some oversight, accountability, to make sure the funds are used how it's intended, by changing it back that we designate. Because I just think that we need to have that. Again, I'm not suggesting we would ever not fund it, but if we put it in the interlocal agreement, it would take the approval of 4 agencies to take it out.
Yeah.
If we just keep it in our ordinance, we could change it ourselves if we needed to. Again, it would have to be extreme circumstances whenever that's happened. I like the interlocal agreement. I like the ordinance. I think it sets the direction that we want the Sports Commission to go, but it doesn't tie the hands of the Sports Commission. It doesn't say you have to build a baseball field or a softball field. It says it shall promote and build athletic facilities such as, and it gives them options to, who knows, what's that crazy ball they were talking about, crinkle ball, or what was that thing? Pickleball, or, it might be something like that. There may be some new wiffle ball might become popular again from when we were kids, Eddie, and it could be a thing. But I like the flexibility in there, and I like the accountability. If we can keep it as designated in draft 6, rather than draft 7 that we didn't get till 4 o'clock today.
So the concern with both of you is, I guess, 2 things. What I hear, and I think, is, one, you want to be able to, have the option that this convention center would not be the county's convention center. We would change and create a different convention center. That's one thing I'm hearing, if I understand right. And the other thing is then that you're concerned that whichever convention center, of course it's this one right now, would not use the money, or has the option of not using the money the way we intend for this to be used for sports tourism.
Well, I don't know the long term I have that. I guess I just, at the present time, I feel like we're in a position to help focus the direction of the money, and I think it's an exciting focus, and I want to have more talks about that focus, and I think we can do that within 2 or 3 weeks before we really, we've got a little time before we actually set this thing up. And honestly, I think the Expo Center has the potential of being really something special with the right additions to make it more of a sports tourism facility. And I want to look at that, and I want us all to be involved in that. And I think that's, because we're going to be blamed. If we do it wrong, and we just simply do this money and it ends up being done wrong, we'll certainly take the blame. And I want to be involved in it so that we at least have, if we're going to have responsibility, I want to make sure we've had some play in the design of it.
So you're talking about language that would give this body some more control than is expressed here now as to binding or requiring the Expo Center to use these funds in a more specific way.
Yes, I think once this agreement is signed, this agreement says we can't terminate this agreement without joint action between us and the city, and we can't do that until all the debt from the 2% is paid for, and we can't do that until we give 12 months written notice, and that is a significantly less position of bargaining power than we have right now, and I'd rather use our moment of influence now and try and get the right direction, and then we'll give up our moment of influence and see how it looks.
Well, and of course, now you've spent more time than I have reading the statutes and studying all this, but I understand that the statutes require that the convention center would have operational control and not us. So I don't know, and I don't know if Sam has any input in that, or Steve, or anybody else. But I know there is some language that says once we make the decision, we're more of the we set, I guess, the policy, we get it done, and then we hand it over to the commission, Sports Tourism Commission, to operate that money. You think that we are within our legal rights within the statute to say not just what we have written here, but of course we've worked for weeks now on getting the language, and is there specific language that you think would fit the statute, not cause us to have trouble with a challenge to it or anything, by both complying with, they get the operational decisions, we establish the funding and set it up?
Right. The truthful answer to that question is we got this change and suggested change so late. I don't know the answer to that, and I want more time to study that issue.
But now this is just, I'm talking about just what the Sports Commission can do with the money, not whether they are the one, whoever the Sports Commission is. You think we can put language in this creating document that would bind them to more specifics than what we have?
It's not the Sports Commission, it's the Convention Center.
The Convention Center.
We're not telling the Sports Commission what to do.
Okay.
I mean, essentially, what this agreement does is it doubles the income of doubles the budget of the Convention Center from about $300,000 to $600,000. And I think it's prudent to pause and say, hey, what are you going to do with that extra $3? And what Bill's telling us, he's on the board, he says, well, I can tell you they already need 50, and they probably need more air conditioners. So, there sounds like there's some legitimate needs right away, but since they're going to get this windfall, I just feel maybe it's just my personality, but I want to say, what are you going to do with that money?
I think
we're sure they're going to get it.
I think it would have to be worded in a way that it doesn't bind them to spend it, but worded in a way that the rest of the agreement's written, that it kind of suggests and talks about the intent.
Yeah.
Well, of course, when we have in law, when you got the language of the statute, sometimes it's not real direct. It gives aspirational sort of guidance, or there's some wiggle room in the statute, and so you have to say, well, what exactly does that language mean? And so you go to the administrative record, or you go to the legislature and listen to the debates like this right here, and you say, well, what did they talk about? What was the intent? What was the desire of the creating body to create? And that's how we're going to enforce it. So I just wonder if by us discussing that and making it clear what the concerns are, and if we can voice what we believe those limitations are, and again, I don't know how far we can go on that. Maybe we have no bounds. We can say, I mean, hypothetically, can we say, all right, you can use that money for 2 air conditioners and a cook and, you know, a shuttle bus?
No, I think we can have the discussion now. I mean, because I mean, we can charge up to 1% tax. We don't have to charge all 1%. I mean, we could charge it 3/4 of a percentage tax. And I think now's the time to have that discussion, because once we pass this, I'll just be some regular old commissioner that doesn't have any say until this agreement can be terminated, and this agreement won't be terminated for probably another 5 years when the debt's gone and we can give 12. I won't even be in office when we when we can terminate this agreement. So I don't want to pass up the moment to
I think there's some doubt about whether the debt would ever be gone. You know, if you got the tax coming in on transient, are we going to not keep providing more service and updating? But it's possible that at some point the debt would be gone.
But the good news is a truly an exciting discussion about how we can improve the Expo Center and its marketability.
Would it help any to hear from the director of the Expo Center or what they intend, or is it, I'm sure your concern goes beyond the current people who hold those offices, but does it give you any? I know that there's been a lot of time put in this. You've probably put more than anybody, perhaps. I've had my share. And we've gone to 7 drafts now, and now we're talking about going back to 6. I haven't heard going back to 2 or 3 yet, but you know, I would, and I know the city is intending to meet tomorrow night, and they're intending to, you know, adopt their own agreement here. They're part of this, and so if we don't, then I don't know if they will or not. I suspect that they will. I think they're all right with all the language. I met with the mayor this morning.
They should, they wrote it.
I suspect they are.
Let me comment on a couple of things. I think it would be okay to put in there about what the intent of the extra fund should be for, but I would hate to tie their hands to spend the money on certain things. For example, I would hate to say that you have to spend 50% of the increased revenue to put in volleyball courts, but then they not have the money to fix the ceiling, and the ceiling's going to leak and ruin the volleyball. I think it's okay to have the priorities, you know, we suggest priorities should be, but again, it's only a matter of time before. How much is a new roof on there, Steve?
We're essentially at the end of service life.
You're at the end of the, and how much is a new roof? What was the estimate on that?
700,000.
See, there's the roof on there it's been held together with chewing gum and tar, and it's about to go under, and that's 700,000 just for a new roof. So
I guess what my
we can ask
question
that maybe some of the money be put into an escrow account for long-term maintenance, but
Well, you got
well, I mean, what do we do with the private businesses out here when they need a new roof? I mean, we're pouring money into something that's competing with them. That's what I keep asking. We keep giving more and more and more. And Michelle does a wonderful job and a good friend of mine, but I just, when do we stop giving? I mean, I'm all about what we're trying to do with the athletic stuff. And I think if we give them the money to buy volleyball and basketball,
a convention center of that size is an asset that no private investor would put in. And if we were building that convention center today, rather than in 1982 when there was a 400-room hotel connected to it, our priorities probably would have been different on what was built. But we had what was left when the executive inn went down, and we have to fund that properly. I think we have to find alternate uses. I think creating a sports complex there, the availability to have dual purposes of a huge tractor show or a home show in there, and then when it's not in use, have volleyball tournaments and basketball tournaments. And
I mean, I truly didn't realize until recently that the availability of the Expo Center and the ceiling height of the expo center, that it actually could work for volleyball.
And I think that's a better alternative to the Eddie Jones
It may be.
sports complex. So.
All I know is that we need indoor recreational facilities for tournament play, and if we can get there through Plan B as opposed to Plan A, and Plan B is a better plan, and it may be. It might actually end up being maybe one of the best places to ever host a volleyball tournament.
And they would have the infrastructure to help run that, where if we were to do something on our own, we don't have the infrastructure, the staffing to do that. So I think it's.
Well, the director's sitting out here. Michelle, won't come up and tell. I mean, we're spitballing, trying to figure out, well, what would they do, what might they do, what they got in mind. And again, I know it's, and she's a young lady. She might be there another 60 or 80 years or so, you know. But we look into the future on these things. But I will say before hear from her, we've got a lot of boards in this county, and I get that this board is the elected board, the elected body, and we're ultimately responsible. The buck stops here, all that. Really, it stops right along in here. But y'all are responsible too. But there's a lot of boards. You gotta trust the people that you put on them to do good things. We can't micromanage this stuff. And if you get people on there that get errant and don't do what they're supposed to do, then we remove them. But I just think we've got a great thing going here, and I think we need to get this done. But I respect the other positions. But what do you have to say, ma'am?
Well, we have been looking into what it costs to get into the sports market. It fits, our facility fits with what they're looking for. The driving capability, the ease and access of getting in and out. It fits very well for cheerleading and gymnastics. But those events that we've had have been very successful. It's just an easy facility to have sporting events in. I'm trying to think what was the main concern. I'll try to address what.
Well, I guess part of my concern right now is to not pass up the moment where we can, because this interlocal agreement basically, it guides the Sports Tourism Commission. It says, hey guys, look at this, this, and this. But we're not doing that with you, and we weren't doing, when I say you, I mean right. the convention center, and we weren't doing that with you because, well, we weren't really addressing the fact that the county could, I guess I was anticipating because we can change our designation, we would have that continuing influence. Now the new draft from primarily the city attorney, it seems like they saw where I was going. and now we couldn't have that influence until this agreement is terminated, which it really won't ever terminate. And
I guess this market fits with what we need. Volleyball tournaments, basketball tournaments are in our low season. That's when we don't have events in the expo.
That's what the hotels say as well.
Right. So the weekend events, the overnight, those are what we need in the expo. That's also what the hotel winter indoor
off
sports.
Season.
Right. Yeah. So garden shows and tractor shows and all of those type of expos are done not in the winter. So in the winter it's pretty much our dark time, which is why we had the ice skating rink a couple of years ago. Was because that was what our availability was. Both of those markets fit with what we need as far as the hotels and what our open dates are. Where was I going with that? But anyway, so we've been trying to get in this market. We don't have the money to put in the equipment, which is where this would come in, where this money would come in to help us get into that market. It's in our best interest to make sure that we use this money appropriately for sporting equipment and to get that market, because that's what we need to, just so that we can be self-sustaining and be where volleyball tournaments are happening and basketball tournaments are happening, and regionally we are in the right location. So it fits very well with what our needs are. It fits well, I feel like, with what the county trying to do is with the sportsplex. We have the dome as well, so that's also something that we can grow into or figure out some way how to make that property an asset as well. It fits with what we're looking to do. It fits with our market. It just is it complements very well with what you guys are doing and what our needs are, as well as the hotels.
I think it is ironic that the sportsplex, which was in the floodplain, as opposed to the convention center, which is also in the floodplain and really close to the river, but we can make this work. I've always thought the floodplain issue could be worked out. But I guess what's missing from this interlocal agreement is anything that obligates the convention center to do what we've just talked about, or to even focus on that. And the reason we didn't put it in here is because, the issue of us not being able to get out of that issue wasn't raised until the last minute. So if we're not going to be able to be in a position to get out of that agreement, then we need to at least add to the interlocal agreement, and where you guys sign on the bottom line saying this is what we're going to start focusing on. Because literally, I mean, we could have this discussion, but your board could say, well, we don't like that idea. We'd rather do something else, and we would have no remedy.
I would be, if you would be, I'd be willing to vote on this tonight if we go back to version 6.
Well, sure.
Where we had the accountability in there. And it would only be 2 changes in what's in version 7. I'd be willing to vote on that tonight, if you would, because I think it's going to be hard to put in there, tell them how to use the funds, but if we have some oversight, then we can at least have some input to get attention.
Well, then the difference in version 6 and 7 is that we're talking about is a convention center that the county designates. And it would start out as
Right.
this one, but it could be, we could unilaterally change it.
Yeah, we could either change it, or we could reduce the tax, or we could not charge the tax. Those would be our points of influence.
Would you be willing to vote on it tonight if we go back to version 6?
Sure.
And I can tell you what those amendments would be to version 7 if you...
Well, and of course, we're talking about the interlocal agreement.
Right.
Where the city is a part of, and I know that the city is not good with that. So we can vote on that, and then they'll vote. We'll vote. We like 6. They'll vote. They like 7, and so we haven't got anything done.
Well, we know we're going to like something in between 6 and 7. And I would like to have it all done tonight too, but I know that 7 means that we'll have potential blame for any mistake that happens and no ability to change it.
6 gives us the ability to correct if a mistake is made.
Right.
Again, I don't think it's going to be an issue, but we just need to, we don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now.
So if we voted 6 saying a convention center to be designated, and we'll understand that it's going to, I mean, do we come along later and say this is our convention center for now?
Well, we did that in our ordinance. We designate in our ordinance. We
Okay,
designate.
so we just have to change the ordinance and do that. And then put it on the onus then on the city to say, hey, the county last night said we want to be open to what the convention center will be, and they'll decide, do they want to join in that agreement, or do they want to say, no, we like number 7, and we go back to the drawing board and try to work up some language.
I don't know what to say, except that it just kind of got raised at the last minute by the city, and we just haven't had enough time to deal with it. So.
Well, of course, I mean, I think that the full scenario is that there was some misunderstanding between what I think some of the agreement, some of the discussions between couple of commissioners in the city, and there was some miscommunications or misunderstandings from that. They thought that maybe the city was good with this, but found out today that they're not.
If I made a motion to amend the ordinance that's on the floor to reflect version 6, would that satisfy you?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. But I think the judge is right. I think we're still going to be negotiating whether we table it or whether we approve 6.
Here's what I don't want to do. This thing, and I get the points, but this thing has been progressing along. I've been meeting with the mayor very often, with Jim Arndt, with the city attorney, the county attorney, with you, and Steve Doolittle, and we've been trying to hammer all this out, and it was a very late change, and we're trying to adopt that. I don't want to see this turn into something where we've been working strongly together, trying to go hand in hand, get this done for the good of the community, and then bam, here tonight we say we don't like what the city's version is, so we're going to vote and create our own, knowing that they're likely to want their own. I would suggest that if we can't decide what we want to do, that maybe we would table it and get together with the same group that's been trying to hammer all this out. I really think that would be a better result.
I think that's probably a better result too.
My concern would be that the city commission tomorrow night will approve this version of it, and then the onus is on us.
Yeah, well,
when we know now, we don't. I mean, if we knew they would agree not to vote on it tomorrow night, I would be willing to wait. But
Well, ask them to table theirs.
Well,
we have no control over what
they do. It doesn't do any good for them to approve it. I mean, if we're not going to approve it,
I think, I meet with the mayor every week, and with Jim Arndt, and they're on board to try to get this done. I think I call her tomorrow and say, hey, can we get together ASAP? Get the group together. We'll figure out what language we want and what we can do, and I really think that's a much better result than us piecemealing ours, and then they say no, and are they doing theirs, and then we come back, and it just makes a cluster of the whole thing.
I think it's important. I don't think, what was that phrase, hubris? I don't think it's my hubris. I think it really is important that we take this moment and have our influence. So.
I understand.
Was that the word hubris there?
Let me ask you for this to let the city know what our intent is. Could we vote to amend this ordinance to reflect version 6 and then table it as amended? And then the city will know what we want in the ordinance? Or are we better off just to wait and hold our hands up and hope the city doesn't approve?
Well,
Judge, that's where I left with the mayor this afternoon was why don't you see where we come out tonight with what the fiscal court's preference is, at least have one,
yeah.
And then they can make a decision tomorrow as to which way they want to go. Their system's a little bit different. They don't have a vote on the first reading. They just do an ordinance introduction, and they have the ability to make minor changes if there are any between when the schedule was set for a joint meeting and on the 26th. So is there a way we can keep the 26th? Is there, if you want to change something, or can you commit to having a special call meeting between now and the 26th so we can address this? Or are we shoving the whole thing back?
No.
What Pam and I have recommended is we can't drop this on the hotel industry a short time before, say 2 weeks this is effective. They have to have a reasonable amount of time to get their systems ready.
Does the order to allow an interlocal agreement require 2 readings?
Yes, clearly.
It's an ordinance.
Well, let me say, at this point in the history, we've always done this by ordinance. I think county discussed that earlier, it's by ordinance.
Steve, in your conversation with the mayor, were you telling her that we would approve what our intent is tonight, and then they can react to that tomorrow night?
Yes, exactly.
So would you recommend that if it's an agreement of the majority that we change to version 6, we vote on that tonight and approve it, then let them react tomorrow night?
And I think it had nothing to do with, they were just trying to get continuity in the language between the various ordinances, the city ordinance, the county ordinance, and the interlocal agreement to all name the Paducah McCracken County Convention Center Corporation as the convention center.
Yeah, but I mean, there were specific discussions about why we weren't doing that in there.
Right, and I don't think this was an action of the city commission that they got together first and have decided to make that change late this afternoon. It was just sort of the last minute adjustments that sort of happen with these kind of things as to, I've noticed an inconsistency and let's get those all consistent. What I said to the mayor as she was getting ready to leave was, why don't you see where we end up on this issue tonight, and then you can react to it tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean,
I kind of agree with Commissioner Bartleman. If you leave it at version 6, which the group that had worked so hard on this had got to and left it there, that really provides the most flexibility for the county going forward. And I think it's more of a county issue than a city issue, frankly.
And if we change it to 6, it reflects the ordinance we approved.
Very much
I'd like
so.
to make a motion that we.
Well, we got a motion.
I want to make a motion. We amend the ordinance. Oh, okay. Do you have nothing?
I don't think you need to do that as long as you have an understanding of the ordinance doesn't change. It's which agreement are you going to attach to?
I'm talking about amending the interlocal agreement to reflect version 6. And that shows the city what our intent is. Or are you saying we shouldn't do that?
I'm saying all you need to do is decide which version 6 or 7 do you want to promote, and then we'll signal that to City Hall tomorrow.
I personally think the right answer to this is to enter Agreement 6 and everybody sign that, and know that we then come back and do a separate agreement with the convention center as to the additional. And I think that solves the problem.
I think that solves the issue without requiring additional meetings with the group and forestalling the action and throwing it into.
So the
what
four
motion
people.
do
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What motion do we need? Do we need a motion to approve version 6?
Yes, I think so.
We put this ordinance on the table, which is version 7. Do we just amend version 7 or say we approve version 6?
I think just a motion saying that for the purpose of the interlocal agreement, we're going to use number 6.
Okay, I will withdraw my motion on this ordinance. Version 7.
No, don't withdraw your motion on the ordinance. I don't think.
How do we get version 6
the motion is for the ordinance, and the interlocal agreement is an attachment to that ordinance. So just signal by motion that we're going to use version 6.
Version 6, which was dated August 5th, 2019, and which designates
It's
our 1%
neutral.
going to,
It's
designates
neutral.
our 1% going to a convention center operating in McCracken County and designated by the McCracken County Fiscal Court as the county convention center.
Okay.
We just have to get that before us properly and vote on it. I mean, it's how do we get that properly before us? We just make that motion, we approve version 6. So then do we have to remove the motion to approve version 7?
We didn't. There was no motion for 7.
There was. I made the motion to approve 7.
Yeah, we had a motion first.
We have a motion and a second to approve version 7.
Point of order, if I do this correctly. There is a motion to approve the ordinance, which authorizes the judge to sign the
Right.
interlocal agreement.
Right, okay.
So, and that has been seconded. If you vote yes or no on the ordinance, then it would be a separate motion that you, for purposes of that ordinance, you approve the entry of draft 6.
There you go, that's
Yeah,
right. Okay,
so we
you're
need-
right, I'm sorry, I was wrong on
Did
that.
I hear a motion to what she just said?
So we're gonna move we're gonna move to amend the ordinance
Gotta
to,
vote 7 down first.
Authorize the judge to
because it's
execute
ordinance,
version
it's not
6.
separate.
so our motion, I'll make a motion to amend the ordinance to authorize the county judge executive to enter into version 6, which was dated.
Point of order.
Okay.
It's not amending the ordinance.
Okay.
The motion that's on the floor is to approve the summary of this ordinance.
Okay.
The summary didn't specify draft 6 or draft 7. So
Just need to
you would
approve the
pass,
ordinance.
you just need to approve the summary that I read.
We have to make sure the summary is consistent with version 6.
Yes, the summary is, because the summary doesn't designate version 6 or version 7. And then you would have a separate motion that would say something like, for the purposes of the ordinance, when it's finally approved at the second reading, you are approving the interlocal agreement draft 6. But the summary that was read didn't mention anything about a draft.
So at the second reading,
Okay, that's right.
Well, let's don't go that far.
And I think we should attach version 6 to this agreement. Okay, then version 6 will be I make a motion, we attach version 6 to ordinance 2019-11. And we attach interlocal agreement version 6 to that ordinance. I make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That carries.
Okay, now we
And now
vote.
we want to vote to pass that
Yeah,
ordinance.
she's right, she was good.
Yeah.
She is good.
In a second, was there a motion to pass that ordinance?
Yeah, we have a motion, that's
Yes,
all right.
Motion and seconded.
It's already motion second. No more.
Hurry up
Let's
and
don't
call.
discuss it anymore.
Yeah, hurry up.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, that carries.
So version 6 is the one we're using.
6, yeah.
So,
All right, what else we got?
If we'd let her talk first, we'd have saved 10 minutes.
yeah. So I
I
think
told
we
you
can
she was
adjourn.
good.
That completes the ordinances, sir. You're ready for 8, for which there are none.
All right, no resolutions. Do we need an executive session for anything? I don't think so. I don't think anything.
I move we adjourn.
Second,
Second.
favor, aye. Opposed, no. Carries, we're
Oh, I'm
gone.
sorry. Commissioner Jones, did you make the motion?
Yeah, I
You
did.
seconded.